At the beginning of the game, you need to remember that the chessboard needs to be placed in such a manner that each player has a light color square on the bottom right-hand side. Regarding the pieces, the second row for each side is filled with pawns, just like this, and the first row should be set up as follows. The rooks belong to the corner squares, and now moving inward, the knight belongs next to the rooks. Yes, this is called a knight and not a horse. Then next to the knight, we have our bishop. After this, we place our queen on her matching color, which means the white queen goes on a white square and the black queen goes on a black square. And then finally, we place the king on the remaining square. If the board is set up correctly, each piece will be facing one another. The queen across the queen and the king across the king. That's how it should be. The player with the right pieces always moves first and makes one move, and then the black makes one move. Each player will make alternative moves like this until the game ends. Each of the 6 different pieces have a unique way of moving.
Let's start with the piece which is the easier to understand, and that's the roof. The roof moves in a plus pattern just like this, which means it can move any numbers of squares either up, down, left or right as highlighted in this position. Roofs can capture the first enemy piece they move into. When you capture an enemy in chess, you simply go to the square it occupies and remove it from the board. Now, let's talk about bishops. The bishop can move diagonally any numbers of squares or in an X pattern just like this. From these positions, it can go to any of the squares I highlighted in red. Bishops can capture the first enemy piece they move into. Now, let's look at the queen. The queen is considered the most powerful piece on board because it can move both like the rook and the bishop, which means it can move any numbers of squares vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. From these positions, the queen can go to any of the squares highlighted in red. The queen can capture the first enemy piece it moves into. Let's talk about the knight's right. The knight moves in the shape of an L, moving 2 squares in one direction, except diagonal, and then 1 square just like that. The knight from these positions can move to any of the squares highlighted in red. The knight is the only piece that can jump over other pieces, meaning if there were any pieces here right next to the knight, it can simply jump over those pieces and move. If there is any opponent piece on those highlighted squares, he can capture them.
Let's talk about the pawns. The pawn is actually the most complicated piece because it has many unique qualities. A pawn is the only piece that moves in one direction and captures in a completely different direction. Pawns move one step forward towards the opponent's side of the board, but if it is their first move, then they can move either 1 square forward like this or 2 squares forward like this. After its first move, the pawn can only move 1 square forward. So let's just say this pawn moved 2 square and this pawn moved 1. Each of these highlighted pawns now could only move 1 square forward. Now if white moves his pawn 2 square forward like this, black also goes 2 square. You might be thinking that this white pawn can capture this black pawn, but he cannot. Remember, pawns can only capture pieces diagonally in front of them, and they cannot capture pieces directly in front of them. In fact, this pawn cannot move and capture since it is stuck. However, this pawn does. Pawn promotion simply means that the pawn simply turns into a queen, bishop, rook, or a knight.
The king moves 1 square at a time in any direction. From this position, he can go to any of these squares highlighted in red. The term check simply refers to the king being attacked. For example, if the rook goes to e8, then the white is in check. When you are in check, you can try to move to a safe square or block check, or simply capture the checking piece. To block means to place a piece in between the checking piece and the king. Here you can block the check with bishop. If you are check and there's no move to protect the king, then the attacking player declares checkmate. For example, in this position, if the black rook moves to h1, white is checkmate. He cannot go to any of these free squares because the black king got them. The bishop is not in a position to capture the rook, nor is the bishop in a position to block the check. Sometimes the game can also end in draw. Let's first look at the draw by a stalemate. In this position, if the queen moves to g3, this is considered a stalemate position, or a draw position. Stalemate occurs under this condition.
If it is your turn to move, your king is not in check, you have no legal moves for any of your plays. In this position, it is white to move. White is no in check and has no legal move, and all three squares are covered by the black queen, and this pawn is also not able to move. This is an example of stalemates. The game can also be drawn by insufficient material. If it is a king and a knight versus a king, there is no way to win and the game is draw. Similarly, if it is a king versus a king and a bishop, this too is a draw. Let's talk about the 50 move rules. This is a position neither side is likely to win and a draw is agreed upon. The 50 move rule basically states that if both players make 50 consecutive moves each player without any pawn move or captures, the game ends as a draw.